Enzo Recto, kalaban ang katiwalian at kasinungalingan, kakampi sa katotohanan at kabutihan.
So, Senator, dalawang bagay ang binanggit po nyo. Ang isa dito ay, I discussed it yesterday with Representative Robert Barbers. Unang-una, kasalanan din eh. Ang nangyari, political accommodation na ang naganap, di ba? Technically speaking, both coming from the Office of the President and Congress itself, bakit bibigyan ng confidential funds ang Office of the Vice President at maging ang DepEd? Tama po kayo doon. So, in effect, frankly speaking, confidential funds have been used for political accommodation. Would you agree?
I agree. But what makes it worse is that it is illegal because there was no item for confidential and intelligence funds in the budget of the Office of the Vice President and the DepEd, which you can add to. That is the ruling of the Supreme Court in the case of Belica versus Executive Secretary. Before you can add to the budget of an agency, there must be an item in the budget that can be augmented. In the case when they moved
Yes, yeah.
there was no, to the OVP, there was no such thing.
Yes,
no such item.
But that's not the whole portion because everything is 612 million pesos. Ang nangyari po ay yung malaking bahagi noon talagang meron sa budget. Kumbaga nilaanan po siya. 'Di ba? Kasi 125 ang na-move pero 612 po ang lahat-lahat na 'yon. So kumbaga go ahead.
Karen, correction.
Okay.
There was no 125 million. That's precisely the ruling. In other words, there was no item for confidential and intelligence funds. Zero. So under the ruling of the Supreme Court, you cannot add budget when there is no budget.
Yes, I agree.
Because just to clarify it, in other words, the Congress has determined that there is no need for confidential and intelligence funds in the office of the OVP and the education. Having said that, under our system, the Office of the President has no authority to move 125 million.
Yes, Senator,
yes.
I heard you there, but 125 yon. The confidential funds of the Office of the OVP is 500 million. DepEd is 112. So nag-move ng 125 pero may sobra pa rin. Meron pa ring nakalaan na excess, roughly 375 million. So nanggaling po yun, di ba, sa Kongreso. Tama po.
Well,
Kasi hindi to 125 lang It's 500 million sa OVP po.
That's correct. I have to recheck the figures.
Okay. All right.
What I know is that there was no intelligence fund item. There was no line which says confidential and intelligence fund. No line in the budget which can be augmented.
Okay. So number one, it's political accommodation and you say it's illegal. Number two, it's expose the weakness of the auditing process. Tama po kayo doon. Kasi ang tanong ko, Senator, you have been doing the budget for many, many years. Paano po ba talaga chine-check kung paano ginagamit ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas o kahit ng Vice Presidente or ng ibang mga ahensya ang confidential funds? Sa Office of the President, 5 bilyong piso ang confidential funds ng opisina ng Pangulo. How is that checked? Every time the budget is done, do legislators demand to know kung paano nagastos yon? Kasi baka ito ang practice sa lahat-lahat. Kaya, di ba, itong ginagawa, allegedly, supposedly, ng Office of the Vice President, could it be, Senator Drilon, na lahat ganun ang practice?
Yes, ganun ang practice. And that is why there must be reforms done in the allocation of the confidential and intelligence funds. First rule, only those agencies which by their mandate are expected to gather information should have intelligence funds. Because what, for example, the Office of the Vice President need confidential funds? And that's why there is need to take a good an examination of the whole concept for those coordinating agencies, NICA to be more specific, the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency. I underscore that it is a coordinating agency. What does it mean? It means it will coordinate the intelligence activities in the entire agency. Why in heaven's name
Yeah.
would it have 991 million in intelligence funds when it is supposed only to coordinate? The intelligence work is supposed to be done by the security agencies of this government. The coordinator is supposed to coordinate, not conduct its own activity, intelligence activities. But it has a budget of 991 million in the 2025 budget. Bakit ganon?
Oo.
Therefore, in my from where I'm coming from, Karen, this impeachment trial on the intelligence funds points to the very serious and immediate need to review the use of intelligence funds. The Joint Circular 2015-1 of the executive branch must be governs what can be in the intelligence fund.
Senator.
But this is more honored in Brits than in compliance.
Yes. Senator, I wanted to ask you, just to clarify for the audience, tama po ba kasi sa mga na-interview ko po kamakailan sa Head Start, sinasabi nila ang confidential funds ibinibigay sa civilian, ang intelligence funds sa military. Tama po?
Tama po,
Tama
tama.
po. So ang may confidential funds sa ilalim ng budget is the Office of the President, Office of the Vice President, pati po ilang mga local chief executives, pati mayors, ilang gobernador. Tama po ba ito, sir?
Tama yan. And in fact, that opens another can of worms. We should examine how the local government units use their budget for intelligence funds. I suspect that there is a lot of abuses there. So that really, and it's impossible to look at all of this during the budget hearing, given the multitude of the accounts that you have to look at. Candidly, hindi po na-examine ito. We are not able to examine. In my 24 years of looking at the budget, I do not recall having looked at this with detail. We had oversight committees on intelligence funds, but but this has not functioned in accordance with its mandate, and therefore there must be a review. If a law has to be passed, then we pass a law and make it punishable. Use of fictitious names, for example, to me is prima facie case of malversation. You don't need to use fictitious names. That is not allowed under the law, even for confidential funds.
Okay.
But this has been the practice, and it must be stopped.
Okay. Sa tagal nyo na pong naging senador, Senator Drilon, nagkaroon ba ng pagkakataon sa paggawa po ng budget na inimbestigahan ng Kongreso, nagtanong ang Kongreso o di kaya ang COA nakapag-issue ng notice of disallowance sa Office of the President? Hindi lang po presidenteng ito, sa opisina ng sino mang presidente sa paggasta niya ng confidential funds. Kasi yung Office of the President, bilyon-bilyon ang confidential fund, Senator. Ito, 5 billion ang nasa Office of the President. Nakita nga natin, sabi nyo, it exposed the weakness of how it is audited. Where is the Office of the President spending the confidential funds. How does he spend it?
Well, yes. The assumption is regularity in the performance of function. One. Number two, the president, by the nature of his office, would need confidential funds where the audit is less stringent and is governed by a different set of rules than the ordinary legislation. But it doesn't mean that this is a license to steal public funds. Hindi po ganun. And yet, it has happened that way. You know, especially in in the administration of PRRD and also this present administration. I researched a bit. During the time of Pinoy, on his last year, in 2016, how much was the confidential and intelligence funds to the office of the president? 734 million pesos in 2016. As President Pinoy left, he had 734 million was the budget of the office of the president. During the time of Duterte, in 2017, it became 2 billion from 734 million. It became 2 billion for the first year of the administration of Duterte. And when he left office, it was 3.8 billion. 3.8 billion in 2022. When President Marcos came in 2023, the budget was 4.8 billion. And in 2026, in the present budget, 9.7 billion. Ano ba naman yun? Indeed, you know, I would strongly suggest that this be looked at and visited. Admittedly, I was part of the Congress which glossed over these items of expense. It is not correct. Two wrongs do not make right. And therefore, it's about time that we review closely this waste of public funds, of confidential and intelligence expenses. Why cannot we make this part of the regular program, and but also impose safeguards, particularly in the auditing, but at the same time achieve its purpose? But just a basic point. Huwag na po yung hindi naman kasama na wala namang mandate on gathering of information. They should not be given intelligence funds. I cannot understand why this is so.
All right. You make very good points there, Senator Drilon. Number one is we've seen confidential funds grow exponentially, not even by 10% from the time of Pinoy to Duterte to the current president, President Marcos Jr. And hanggang ngayon, there is no transparency in the way confidential funds are spent. So, I wanted to ask you some points, no? Raised by the defense. It was raised in yesterday's trial that the defense position was that funds that were sourced from the president's office were somehow exempt from ordinary liquidation and audit requirements for confidential funds. Na-bring up po yan kahapon. Of course, COA did not agree. Pero it seems hindi malinaw. Diba? Paano po yun, Senator?
That is why the fastest way, the most expedient way, is to correct Joint Circular 2015-1, which laid out how the use of the confidential fund. It must be stricter, and the deficiencies lie in the COA, but COA will just simply say that we're just following the mandate under Joint Circular number 1. First thing to do, review Joint Circular number 1. The first, to be very clearly, we should only allow intelligence and confidential funds in the offices which has the mandate to gather information. And I have no qualms. There is need for intelligence funds, but let's use it properly.
Oo. Oo.
Now it's being abused.
Yes. And
And the,
may
and the
pu-
impeachment trial simply exposed this weakness in our system.
and may punto kayo, Senator.
Bunyog, bunyog, halikan na kasama ka. Bunyog, kapag buklod ay may pag-asa. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, isa ang pananaw. Sa bagong Pilipinas ang bunyog isisigaw. Bunyog.